I hear a motion that the Lynchburg City School Board certifies that in the closed meeting just concluded, nothing was discussed except the matter specifically identified in the motion to convene in the closed meeting and lawfully permitted to be so discussed under the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act cited in that motion.
So moved.
Any discussion? All right, we will vote by roll call vote. Dr. Brown?
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So recorded. At this time, shall we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time I introduce the clerk of the Lynchburg City School Board, Ms. Wendy Sullivan, who will come and conduct the election of the chairman.
In accordance with Section 22.1-76 of the Code of Virginia, it is necessary that the school board reorganize for the 2017-18 school year. The process of reorganization begins with the election of the chairman of the school board for 2017-18. Nominations are now in order to elect the chairman of the Lynchburg City School Board.
I'd like to nominate Dr. Millis as chairman of the Lynchburg City School Board for 2017-18 school year.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Okay, if not, I need a motion to close nominations for the chairman of the Lynchburg City School Board.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. I now need a motion to approve Dr. Millis as chairman of the Lynchburg City School Board.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Dr. Millis, you now have the floor.
Next is election of the vice chair of the school board for 2017-18. In accordance with section 22.1-76 of the Code of Virginia, it is necessary that the board reorganize for the 2017-18 school year. The process of reorganization requires the election of a vice chair of the school board for 2017-18. Ms. Morrison.
Dr. Millis, I would like to propose that we delay the election of a vice chair until the next meeting when all school board members are present.
Second.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there a discussion on the proposal to delay election of the vice chair? If not, I guess all in favor of deferring the selection of the vice chair until the next meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. Brings us to item B3, appointment of the clerk and deputy clerk for 2017-18. Part of our reorganization is the board will appoint a clerk and may appoint a deputy clerk for terms of 1 year. Superintendent recommends the following appointments: clerk of the school board, Wendy Sullivan, and deputy clerk of the school board, Barbara Saunders.
Chair, I
Sir.
so move Wendy Sullivan as clerk.
It's,
Second.
okay, it's been moved and seconded, and I'm assuming that includes Ms. Saunders also as deputy clerk. Okay, I just want to just be clear. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Next brings us to appointment of the agent and deputy agent for 2017-18. The process of reorganization requires that the school board appoint an agent and may appoint a deputy agent for terms of 1 year. The superintendent recommends the following appointments. Agent for the school board is Anthony Beckel Sr. Deputy agent for the school board is Kimberly Lukanich. Ms. Morrison, move to approve?
Yes. Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion on these appointments? No? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. All right. Designee. That brings us to appointment of the designee of the division superintendent for 2017-18. The process of reorganization requires the school board approve a designee of the division superintendent to attend meetings of the school board in the absence or inability to attend by the superintendent. The superintendent recommends Anthony E. Beckel Sr., Chief Financial Officer, as his designee.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. It brings us to meeting dates and times and location for the school board meetings for 2017-18. It is during the 2016-17 school year, the school board conducted its meetings on the first and third Tuesday of each month, beginning at 5:30 in the boardroom in the school administration building. With school board approval, meetings for 2017-18 will follow the same schedule, meaning the first and third Tuesday of the month, with the exception of April 3rd, 2018. I'm not sure why that's... Is that a break? Yes. Okay. And, okay, so January 3rd is the first Tuesday. And I don't see any other conflicts, so, okay. What's the board's pleasure on this motion, in this item?
I move that we approve the school board meeting dates, location, and time.
Second.
Okay, then moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you. Brings us to election of the school board representative for the Laurel School Board. I think Ms. Carter has indicated a strong willingness to serve as the school board representative for the Laurel School Board, and as an alternate, Ms. Snyder. Is there a motion to approve Ms. Carter as the representative and Ms. Snyder as the alternate?
So moved, Mr. Chair. Second.
Second. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you. Brings us to appointing a representative for the Central Virginia Governor's School for Science and Technology Governing Board. Ms. Mason, who is not here, communicated to me that she had a desire to continue as the governor's school representative. And Dr. Sinha, are you willing to serve as alternate?
Yes.
Is there any other? Okay. So is there a motion in favor of Ms. Mason as the representative and Dr. Sinha as the alternate for the governor's school? Okay. Second. Moved and seconded. Any other additional discussion? Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? No. Thank you. Tick them off. That brings us to election of the school board representative for the Governor's Regional Accelerate STEM Academy. Lynchburg City School needs a representative on the governing board for the Accelerate STEM Academy, as well as an alternate. Dr. Coleman, would you be willing to? I meant to catch up with you beforehand, so I apologize for the short notice. Would you be willing to be a representative or an alternate?
I'd be willing to serve at whatever the pleasure of the board. I'd just as well.
Well, I have another candidate that depending on what you want to do, if you'd rather do the alternate.
I would rather to see more board members engaged, and so if there's another
How about
option,
if you select you as alternate?
I would love to be
And
alternate.
how about Dr. Brennan as the representative, jumping in head first?
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to have Dr. Brennan as the representative for the Accelerate STEM Academy Board and Dr. Coleman as the alternate. Any other additional discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you. All right, where are we here? So that brings us to item B10, School Board Governance Norms and Protocols. That is in your packet. It is for your information. It will be in review for until the next meeting, and it will be for action, basically meaning we accept these norms and protocols and agree to abide by them. They are norms and protocols for how board members interact with each other, as well as interactions in the school system division with staff and the superintendent. Certainly, if there's any questions or suggestions for changes, please give those to Ms. Sullivan in the meantime. And basically, it's a recognition that we will hear each opinion and ultimately act as one. And we will be mindful of the different roles that we as board members have throughout the school system, as well as our individual roles as a board member and a parent and a citizen of the city of Lynchburg.
Even if we don't agree.
Even if we don't agree, and most of all, we will not interfere with the day-to-day running of the operations of the school system, which is the responsibility of our superintendent.
Amen.
Yes. Okay. At this point, I need a motion to amend the agenda.
Make a motion that we amend.
You need to know how to amend it, though, first. Need a motion to add an addendum to item F2, personnel report, and replace the attachment H2, policy JN, student fees, fines, and charges, and regulation JNZ-R, student fees, fines, and charges. Is there a motion to add an addendum and replace attachment H2?
I move that we make the amendment.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. All right, so the agenda is amended. So that brings us to public comments. We do have public comments tonight. Before I call them up, I need to read our policy here. Persons appearing before the school board will not be allowed to campaign for public office or promote private business ventures and should not use profanity or vulgar language or gestures, make comments about a public official or an employee that are not related to his or her official duties, engage in behavior that disrupts the meeting or intimidates others, or address the school board on issues that do not concern the services, policies, role, and/or responsibilities of the school board. Individual speakers shall limit their comments to 3 minutes. A speaker representing a group shall limit his comments to 5 minutes. The representative shall identify the group at the beginning of his or her presentation. A group may have no more than one spokesperson. The total allotted time for public comments at school board meetings is 30 minutes. Public comments are reserved for the public to provide input. The board does not respond to comments, answer questions, or otherwise engage in discussion at this time. Mr. Flood.
Talk about the volunteer piece for ex-offenders. I know this topic has been going on since 2014, and I think the last time I was here, y'all came up with some way to amend it a different way from 15 to 5 years, in which I still disagree that it shouldn't even be 5 years, but I haven't heard a lot about it since then. Just a few questions I want to ask. Once y'all decide, whatever it be, 5 or whatever, 10, do the principals on the same page at different schools with y'all? That's a question. If you could email me and let me know after this is over. If y'all recommend one thing, the principals, can they change it, or can they have to go by what y'all tell them? The second thing is, when will we know something about the school board's decision on 5 years, 2 years, or whatever y'all decide? Although, like I said, I still think it should be 0, because a person being punished twice after he incarcerated and come home, he had to wait 5, 10 years or whatever. I think it's not right. I think he's already done whatever he needed to do to pay his debt, and he should be given a second chance. The third thing is, who decided, or where did this come from? 15 years, 5 years, or how did y'all come up with that? You never get an answer to that. I mean, was it a group decision or somebody brought it up, but how did you come up with even 5, 1 or 2 years? Does someone have to wait to go volunteer with his kid if he never been in trouble and got a felon on his record and come home and can't go to the school for 2 hours? Who came up with that? The last thing is, and the last time I was here, I know y'all had mentioned it was a time limit, and I know the fiscal year, I think, is July. I don't know for sure, but have y'all came up with a decision since July the 1st is gone, we're going into August, and this has been since 2014, and we're still talking about the same thing. And I hope that y'all consider at least trying to not, I don't agree with 5 years, by no means, but it's better than 15. And I wish y'all would come up with 0, because a person should not be punished twice for something when he can make a difference. A lot of people out here know about the problems. A lot of people don't know about the solutions. And I think that a lot of people that's ex-offenders are the solutions to a lot of these problems. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to item D1. Dr. Massey, do you want to introduce this?
I'll ask Mrs. Jody Gillette to come to make a presentation to the board on the Lynchburg City Schools Education Foundation. Mrs. Gillette.
Good evening. I'm Chairman Nellis and Lynchburg City School Board members. My name is Jody Gillette, and I'm the Executive Director of the Lynchburg City Schools Education Foundation. The Lynchburg Education Foundation was founded in 1985 with the mission of encouraging innovation in the classroom and to raise public funds above and beyond public revenues. The Education Foundation works to secure financial support from individuals and businesses for selected projects and programs which are consistent with the goals and priorities of the Lynchburg City School Board. We have an extremely strong board of trustees who are dedicated to public education and the Lynchburg City Schools. The Education Foundation has worked to advance the Lynchburg City Schools for over 30 years and just celebrated 25 years of classroom innovation grants. We are happy to report that we have once again had a very successful year and are proud to share the following accomplishments with you. During the 2016-17 school year, the Lynchburg City Schools Education Foundation awarded 42 classroom innovation grants totaling $82,121, bringing our grant total since the start of this program to $715,645. Funding for our 16-17 grants came from individual donors, as well as 59 corporate sponsors, including 5 new supporters. We awarded 33 classroom innovation grants at funding levels between $500 and $2,000, and 9 master classroom innovation grants with funding up to $5,000 each. We continue to work with the Finance Department to issue grant funding throughout the school division to streamline the accounting effort and better ensure proper implementation of grant funds. Our annual Classroom Innovation Grants reception was held at EC Glass High School on Wednesday, May 10th, to recognize our grant recipients, showcase their projects, and thank our grant supporters. Teachers, sponsors, principals, school administrators, DARTs, school board members, city leadership, and foundation trustees were invited to see the impressive projects developed with these funds. EC Glass National Honor Society students were on hand to help with the setup and cleanup of the programs, as well as assist teachers with the transport of their displays. The grants reception was once again catered by the culinary arts students at EC Glass High School, which provided another platform for the division to showcase one of the many wonderful career tech programs. As I reported our intentions last year, this was the first year we introduced a 2-notification grant cycle. A spring notification date for grant approval so teachers can start the school year knowing they have funding to implement a project from the first day of school, and a second end of September or early October deadline to allow teachers who identify a problem or opportunity in the first month of school to have an avenue of funding for that school year. This spring cycle resulted in 19 grant applications for the 17-18 school year, resulting in 9 grant awards, all of which were classroom innovation grants, and it totaled just over $17,000. The fall application process opened in June and will close October 1st. We also implemented launch liaisons for the first time. The LCS Education Foundation has funded many effective grants over the years, and we want to ensure that we capture the data we need to know when an exceptional grant should be replicated. Launch liaisons work with each grant team to make sure that each applicant has the information they need at the start of their grant, the metrics they need to properly evaluate their results, and that someone with the link outside of the teacher's classroom has a good understanding of the grants for future implementation. We thank our grant review team of Ann Berry, Al Coleman, Tawana Hancock, Maria Yeager, Yvette Miller, Rob Quell, Dixie Sears, Willis Vanderwerker, and our chairman, Dr. Jay McLean, who committed time and offered their expertise to the grant review process. So just a few pictures to kind of show you some of the projects that were going on. This was an environmental studies on the James project, and it brought to life the importance of research and environmental monitoring for Heritage High School AP environmental and ecology students, as they developed detailed water quality reports that were sent to appropriate agencies for review. Love this picture. Every student should feel like this every day walking into a classroom. And this was a student who was getting to experience the R.S. Payne Stream Room as they learned about ozobots. Oops. This is another happy student in the Stream Room as they explore other science activities. These students from T.C. Miller studied measurement, sound waves, frequency, and hertz, as well as met music SOL objectives as they built their own cookie tin banjos. And students learned contemporary artistic techniques on iPads. And when teachers and students show their appreciation, it means a lot. I received a text one day 2 weeks ago, I think it was, from one of our sponsors who was absolutely thrilled when he opened that envelope and saw all those thank you notes, and the message was, and this is why we do it. So appreciate the effort the teachers do to not only do their projects with their students, but the time they take to show their appreciation. And because companies know that their support matters, they return year after year. Cole and Beth Candler from Candler Oil were the first to be recognized for 20 years of support. So we thank them for that. Our Tools for Schools warehouse continues to grow. We were once again able to leverage $17,000 into more than $170,000 worth of materials for our teachers and students. Through several on-site shopping days at the start of the school year and the continuation of our online ordering system so teachers do not have to leave the classroom to get the supplies they need, we've filled just over 1,000 teacher orders during this past school year. All of this was made possible due to the hard work and dedication of Tracy Baker, who diligently volunteers uncountable hours at the warehouse and is committed to making these resources more accessible to a greater number of teachers. For the 16-17 school year, The Education Foundation delivered 936 school supply kits and 413 backpacks before the start of school for our elementary school students in need. For the 17-18 school year, grants from CSX, the Greater Lynchburg Community Trust, NiSource, Norfolk Southern, Woodman Life, individual donations designated for school supplies, and Ed Foundation funds, and the many resources secured through school supply drives with the help of partners in education are allowing us to distribute 1,330 school supply sets and 852 backpacks to satisfy the full anticipated demand of all LCS students in need before the first day of school. So this is the first year we were able to, before the first day of school, satisfy the need for not only the elementary students, but we were able to extend that to the middle and high school as well. All distribution at the school level to students is handled through principals and guidance counselors to ensure that the true needs are being met. In March, our 11th annual breakfast with the superintendent was held at Lynchburg College with an audience of 418 business and community leaders. Dr. Brabrand provided introductory remarks to this year's program entitled The LCS Classroom of 2017, and Dr. Jay McLean's keynote address provided a comprehensive, high-content, yet entertaining overview of teaching through the years, how pedagogy has evolved over time, and how LCS is implementing best practices in education as our focus shifts from a culture of memorizing to developing innovative and collaborative thinkers and learners. Attendees enjoyed a patriotic start to the event with the presentation of colors by the Heritage High School Marine Corps Junior ROTC Color Guard and an outstanding rendition of the national anthem by the Acapellas from EC Glass High School. We thank our 12 lead sponsors and 44 table sponsors for making this event such a successful community event, school event, and fundraising event. Just to give you a sense of how we filled the room at Lynchburg College. And we had Ed Foundation trustees and community citizens, corporate leaders, and elected officials attending this event. On Sunday, May 7th, the Foundation hosted our 13th annual Senior Honors Recognition Program. This event is our opportunity to recognize the top 15 graduating seniors from each high school. Each honored student can invite 2 family guests along with a special teacher from their K-12 LCS experience. We congratulate those teachers who were selected this year for being outstanding in their students' lives. Victoria Bartholomew, a 2007 EC Glass graduate, realtor with the Flint Property Group, an active community volunteer who has chosen to return to our community and make Lynchburg her home, provided an amusing but insightful keynote address for our young graduates. From tips on the importance of personal financial responsibility to making new friends, Victoria shared 10 bits of wisdom we all wish we had before heading off to college. Students were individually recognized and received a certificate honoring their success. This program was sponsored by all of Lynchburg area colleges, Central College of Nursing, Central Virginia Community College, Liberty University, Lynchburg College, Randolph College, Sweetbriar College, and Virginia University of Lynchburg, and we thank each of them for honoring these students' accomplishments and making the special recognition possible. The Education Foundation awarded $42,500 in scholarships to graduating seniors, thanks to the ongoing support of the Al Strubance Foundation, whose scholarships continue to grow for our students, Belvac Production Machinery, the Greater Lynchburg Community Trust, the James Howard Scholarship, Lynchburg Junior Women's Club, Orthodontic Arts, Taylor Brothers of Lynchburg, and Technical Management Resources. In addition, the Education Foundation facilitated 2 scholarships from the Dover Foundation and 3 scholarships from Whitehead Media Ventures for the first time this year. We also continue to serve as the fiscal agent for the Charlie and Mary Jane Pryor Excellence in Science Scholarship for $25,000 awarded to one student who received an advanced studies high school diploma, possessed a GPA of 3.8 or higher, and was studying in a field of science. This is the fourth of 4 years for this scholarship. The Fees Engineering Scholarship awarded tuition, books, and fees to an EC Glass, I think I missed a slide, there you go, to an EC Glass student for each of 2 years of the 2-year CVCC Engineering Technology Program. The last student to receive this scholarship will begin his second year this fall. With both of these scholarships coming to an end, I want to thank both the Pryor and the Fees families for the commitment, generosity, and vision they had to support our students, as well as provide incentives to attract and retain the best students for LCS. We continue to offer funding assistance through our James K. Candler Opportunity Fund for students with identified fiscal need who are capable of academic excellence but experience funding as a barrier to educational opportunities while still in the public school learning environment. Students who are considering advanced academic programs, have qualified for national academic competitions, or have other earned scholastic opportunities will be eligible for support from this fund. We are honored to have supported several students this year participating in a wide range of programs and have just awarded our third set of early college scholarships through this fund. Scholarships this year totaled over $11,000 for a total of over $20,000 in scholarships since the inception of this program. The foundation continues to work as advocates for the Lynchburg City Schools as we partnered with LCS to fund a full-page ad in the News in Advance the Sunday before graduation, spotlighting our top graduates, where they will be attending school, as well as what they liked best during their time at LCS. The foundation also coordinated support for the Lynchburg City Schools during the city's budget season by arranging for speakers from various sectors of the community to speak to City Council in support of the division's increased request for funding. We helped build camaraderie and team spirit by purchasing the T-shirts for the LCS participants of the 10-miler, which gave LCS and the Ed Foundation a little extra visibility at both this event as well as Get Downtown. In addition to the above-mentioned scheduled events and programs, the foundation stands ready to assist the school division however we can when needed. For example, when there was a need for additional safety glasses and goggles as a result of more hands-on science opportunities due to additional science labs, thanks to our new high school and greater emphasis on hands-on learning, LCS came to us for support, and we put a call out to our sponsors and were met with overwhelming response. Thank you to LSC Communications and BWX Technologies for being a friend to the Education Foundation and our schools by fulfilling our request, and to Arriva, Appalachian Power, and all of the other companies who also stepped up to offer assistance. We served as the fiscal agent for the Virginia STAR program for Computers for LCS and completed the fundraising support for the Miss Lucille Chafin Kent Historic Marker. Ms. Kent taught meteorology, navigation, and civil air regulations through an extension program held at EC Glass High School. Perhaps most notable is that Ms. Kent was among the first Virginia women to earn an instructor's rating in aeronautics. Ms. Kent has a fascinating past, and we are honored to be part of the effort to keep this piece of history alive. This funding effort was very successful thanks to the hard work of Ms. Jane White and led to resources becoming available to purchase equipment for the EC Glass Air Force Junior ROTC program to help with their recruiting efforts as well as their competitive Raiders team. We thought this was a fitting tribute for Ms. Kent. We also supported a visit from Mr. Ted Dintersmith. Ted, as he likes to be called, is a successful venture capitalist who has become one of America's leading advocates for education policies that foster creativity, innovation, motivation, and purpose. He knows what skills are valuable in a world of innovation and how we can transform our schools to better prepare students for their futures. When LCS had the opportunity to bring Ted to Lynchburg, we were honored to sponsor his visit. A community viewing of Ted's documentary, Most Likely to Succeed, preceded his visit and was followed by a day of visionary conversations between Ted, Lynchburg business leaders, LCS directors and faculty, and the general community. Finally, as our tagline states, the Education Foundation looks for opportunities to advance the Lynchburg City Schools. As you may know, there will be a solar eclipse passing across the United States on Monday, August 21st. The Education Foundation is very excited to announce that we are working very closely with LCS to support the purchase of solar eclipse glasses approved by NASA for all LCS students, faculty, and hopefully all staff. This came to us as a last-minute thought that needed immediate attention during a time of transition and vacation for LCS leadership. Dr. Massey, Dr. McLean, and so many others have been rapid in their response and working to create an educational and memorable experience for our students who will now get to view this astronomical phenomenon. We continue to work closely with the school division to advance the LCS mission. We also work with Partners in Education, Beacon of Hope, and the Department of Economic Development and other organizations to maximize effectiveness of assistance to the Lynchburg City Schools. Our program one program cultivated by the Education Foundation between LCS and the Lynchburg Economic Development Authority, known as HYPE, Housing Incentive for Professional Educators, never got the legs it needed to become the incentive tool it was designed to be. With over $75,000 invested by the Economic Development Authority, the decision was made this spring to end this $8,000 per teacher multi-year incentive to attract highly qualified new teachers. Incentives already awarded will continue to be honored, but no new incentives will be available. The Education Foundation continues to work to grow all of our programs. We thank both the Lynchburg City School Board, the Lynchburg City Schools, for their outstanding working relationship they offer. Thank you for all that you do for the students of Lynchburg and for allowing the Education Foundation to be part of your team.
Are board members included?
Order those extra 200.
Okay, thank you. Just was wondering. I think we get some great things from it. Thank you for everything that you're doing.
Ms. Carter?
Just want to say also thank you for all that you all do. I was able to go to the grand celebration and just to see the, well, two in particular that fascinated, several did, but the recorders, how that the teacher, I forgot what school she was from, I apologize, but she was talking about that the boys and girls really enjoy doing that and the progression they've made, and some students they readily pick that up, and also the kinetic sand. That was really good. It was just like sand, but not messy. That was awesome. And the breakfast is always wonderful, and just to see how many people participated. And the honors dinner is always just a pleasure to go to. And also Mr. Dender Smith was wonderful. So thank you again for all that you all do.
Dr. Tallman?
Jody Gillette, I want to say, as I reflect on my own growth, sitting around this table in previous years, I didn't have a full understanding of the depth of the Education Foundation. These last 2 years, I want to thank you. And I know that everyone around this board that gets to all of these incredible events that you all do across the year, you are outstanding. From start to finish, you cover every detail. Never forgetting to say thank you, always reaching out and being inclusive. This report, if you took another hour, minute for minute, this is incredible. And I'm going to be a donor this year because this is amazing, amazing work, from the honors piece to the engineering to everything. Thank you for what you do. You are above and beyond what anybody could ask in the capacity that you serve. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
And I'm impressed that you could turn $17,000 into $170,000 worth of stuff. I would really like to know how to do that.
I know a guy.
And I'd like to thank you too. It's amazing when you look back over the years and the amount of effort continuing day in and day out and helping the teachers and the students, and really enjoyed the reception you had at the end of the year for the grants, because there's a lot of creativity going on there that the teachers wouldn't be able to express and get support for. And the one that really caught my eye was the environmental field trips, because that was kind of pricey. It's not something those kids wouldn't have been able to do without that support. So yeah, you do a fantastic, amazing job. So thank you. I mean, thank you. Okay, that brings us to item E1, the finance report. This is going to be Mr. Beckles.
Good evening. For my financial report tonight, I have 4 items I need to bring to your attention. One is each of you received a copy of the budget, the bound book of the 2017-2018 budget. So each of you got a copy of that. We've completed all of the sections and now ready for implementation for the new fiscal year. In relation to the budget, though, I'd like to thank 3 people in particular. Wendy Sullivan for the cover design. Artistic design is not one of my fortes, so the artistic design was done by Wendy Sullivan. I'd also like to thank my assistant, Monet Davis. She did all the keying on all the spreadsheets and all the typesettings that you see in the 70-something pages of this book. She could tell you almost what's on every page. She's been over them so many times. But I do thank her, and I also thank Tom Tyree for printing the book for us. So the budget book would not be a success without the contributions of a lot of people, but particularly those 3 people in the process of doing the book. Number 2 is our financial report. You have before you the financial report for the 11 months ended last May. A couple items I'd like to bring to your attention. We will meet our revenue forecast and the budget. So from that perspective, in fact, from the state, we will have about $400,000 more state revenue than we originally anticipated, due to increase in 2 items. One is $190,000 for the Laurel program, and then so that's $190 more from the state. From the Medicaid funding, our reimbursement, normally the current year reimbursement comes in the following year. This particular year it came in June, so we were able, that was $300,000 more than normal. So as a result of those 2, we're in pretty good shape as far as our revenue. Our sales tax, we'll be on target to meet the sales tax revenue from the state. So from that side of it, no issues. On the expense side, you will notice on your report there are a few accounts that have some negative numbers. One of them that you're going to see in instruction, I think that was $99,000. That one I'm not too concerned per se. It was $88,881. But it does include a pretty high amount for substitute costs. That this coming year we think we need to pay some more attention to that. And that exceeded budget by a pretty large amount. The other negative amounts, they will go away at the end of June. If you remember some time ago, I told you that our software system, we have the majority of our instructional people on 11-month contracts. The VRS, our system still takes over 11 months. So in the encumbrance section, you can see it encumbers 1 month more than it should. When that is released, that'll negate some of these negative numbers that you see there. So I'm not too concerned. In fact, I'm not concerned at all about the negative numbers you see there. Outside of that, there are no significant items as far as the expenses that I need to bring to your attention as far as the May report is concerned. Forecasting for the end of June, I don't see any major issues there. We will have a fund balance somewhere between $600 and $1 million, which we were a little concerned about with the medical insurance. Medical insurance for May came in lower than April. If you remember, April was $1.1 million. May came in around $900,000. So we're just waiting on June, and then we'll complete the balance of the year. At this point, we are $1.5 million over our budget. But if you remember, we got $1.3 million from the reserve, so we'll be able to cover that. What I'm hoping is that our fund balance reserve, all of that will be able to go back to the health reserve. And if it's around $1 million, that means we're only 300 short, so we'll have $1.3 million back at the reserve. That'll put us in good stead for the coming year, and that will decrease the pressure for us to need to increase the insurance premium for the following year. So far, we're doing pretty good as far as that is concerned. I have no concerns as far as that is concerned. And then the fourth item was one of the items to be presented to the Finance Committee about the proposed increase of $1 in the hourly rate for our bus drivers. If you know, we're still having difficulty with our bus drivers. You were given a handout that show you what our rate compared to the bus driver rates in the districts around us. And you can see we're significantly lower on our hourly bus driver rate compared to the other districts around us. Our proposal is to increase the rate effective August, if I remember, and then we would take that from the salary lapses. As you remember, normally twice a year I come back and ask to reallocate. We're anticipating that we will take that from those reallocated funds. But we do need to do something to increase our chances of getting our bus drivers. We are still short on bus drivers. If you have any further questions, Ben or I will be able to answer any of the questions that you may have. Ben, I don't know if you have any further comment on that.
One additional point of clarification is that the dollar pay raise will actually affect the 4 subcategories of what I call support employees that you have on the sheet that was provided to you. And when you think about substitute custodians or substitute cafeteria workers, and especially substitute bus drivers, when somebody doesn't take a substitute position, someone else picks up that load. So in transportation, that is as drastic as a dispatcher is no longer dispatching and they might be driving a route, or a mechanic may be driving a route. At a school, if nobody picks it up, then that 3-person custodial crew at an elementary school is now down to 2, and there's a lot more work to be done by those 2 people. And with the cafeteria, is where it has really hurt us this year. We have had a whole total of 1 substitute cafeteria worker for this entire previous school year, and that individual had no problem taking a job anywhere in the school division because we always had more than 1 person that was out. So what we hear when we talk to folks is that they just aren't attracted to the low hourly rates that we pay compared to what people are paying around us. So they'd much rather work for a little bit more money and drive a little bit further to do that work. So that's where the $1 an hour increase came in, to try to attract folks to fill these very critical substitute positions.
Okay. Board member questions or comments? Ms. Carter?
Well, even the $1 additional amount they'll still be below, according.
Yes, ma'am. But we felt the need to do something.
Yes, we do.
To at least move it in the right direction for those that are willing to work with Lynchburg City Schools. There is some loyalty out there for people that have worked for us in the past that just want to do substitute type work now because they know us. So our hope is that we'll be able to have a little bit better fill rate with a little bit more money offered. And we will look at all of the salary scales over the coming year to decide what else needs to be adjusted to make things more attractive.
Okay.
So when we were doing the increases for the IAs and then the market increase for these, the subs weren't included in
No, ma'am. That was just our full-time bus drivers, custodians, IAs, and a select group of folks in the maintenance department. So Now you see the criticality of the needs across not only the full-time people, but our substitute people too.
Dr. Coleman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Copeland, thank you for what you are sharing. The new director, I know that you had said we will get a chance to talk or see him. These bus drivers are the first persons that the kids see. So that you feel comfortable that we're moving in the right direction?
Yes, sir. It's a move in the right direction, and knowing the challenges that we had in the last budget cycle, and all of the competing priorities, we felt that at least moving this by $1 an hour is a move in the right direction.
Hopefully it will help with your fill rates.
Exactly.
One comment I would make on the, you may have heard that the city is going to do a salary study. Well, the city has also included us in that salary study. So I think that's a good piece that we're going to be included in that salary study. So that should add a little bit of a, well, we're included in it. Before we were not. So I think that's a good move that we are included in it, particularly for those with what they call light positions. It's not teachers, because I mean teachers isn't a light position, but there's no ramifications for that also. But are those light positions we are included in the city's salary study that will be taken next year.
Thank you. That brings us to the consent agenda. It consists of the school board meeting minutes from June 14th, 2017 closed meeting, June 20th, 2017 regular meeting, and the June 22nd, 2017 Student Discipline Committee meeting, personnel report and addendum, and the policy KG-R, community use of school facilities, rules and conditions. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Second. Any additional discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you. Brings us to item G, school board committee reports. I don't know if anything happened over the last few weeks. If not, we will move to our unfinished business. First up is the Lynchburg City Schools plan for gifted education. It is for action tonight. Dr. McLean.
Good evening. At our last meeting, we shared a couple things around gifted education. We shared updates that had occurred during last school year. Ms. Boyles provided that information, and then we also presented to you an update to the gifted plan. The gifted plan is something that the school board is asked to approve whenever we make updates. We look at it as a living plan, learn tweaks that would be helpful as we go, and that was shared with you at the last meeting, and so it comes to you this evening for a vote.
Okay. Are there board member questions or comments? So this is for action tonight. Is there a motion to approve? Is there a second? Been moved and seconded to approve the Lynchburg City Schools plans for gifted education. Is there additional discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Next is policy JN, student fees, fines, and charges, and regulation JNZ-R, student fees, fines, and charges. This is Dr. McLean again.
Yes.
Take it away.
All right. So at our last meeting, we shared this proposed new policy and regulation around student fees, fines, and charges, gave some of the background as to the why. I'll just read again what we say that our intent in this is basically that we want to provide stewardship of division funds while supporting development of personal responsibility in students and still holding equity of access to school and extracurricular activities. So there are a few modifications that were made to these after the last meeting, and I just want to highlight those for you for what you have in front of you. One of the changes we made, updates we made, is we realized the term fee waiver was somewhat confusing in the actual language from the state code, it says that a fee waiver basically is when fees are reduced or waived. And we thought that sometimes people may think waiver means complete removal of a fee, and by definition that isn't what it means. So we changed that terminology to a fee adjustment. And you'll notice in the regulation, particularly in section 3, we changed fee waiver to fee adjustment, and we noted that a fee adjustment can include a modification of the fee amount and or the payment schedule. One of the items brought forth by the board last time was a question around payment schedule, and so we made sure that was a little more explicit in there, and that basically then a student just needs, or a family needs to keep on the schedule that they've agreed to. So that was one of the modifications. We also, in the regulation JNZR section 3, we removed, there was a default of a 20% reduction amount. We thought that might be confusing as we navigate what that looks like for different families in different situations. So we removed that line as something that we will continue to work through based on the fee and the family circumstances. And the only other change in there was there was a mention in terms of some of the different privileges students have that could be considered as a privilege if a fee is, if fees aren't fully paid. Field day was in there. Our principals asked to take the field day piece out because they saw a lot of things where that is not just a privilege. So we removed those pieces. So we present it to you, take any questions. I do want to point out one thing, which is the very end section of the regulation, and that is what you have in front of you is an approach on collection of fees, current and implications, if you will, to pay before you play. But section 9 is what do you do about prior obligations. We worry that if we put this into place and hold all families accountable to prior regulation without due timely notice, that could create all sorts of difficulties for our families and not meet that original intent that we had. So one thing that's asked, if this is approved by the board tonight, is to name the semester at which you want prior obligations to be held as a requirement. And our recommendation is for that to give this full school year, and that would go into place a year from now. So that's a second piece of this, just for you to consider this evening.
So your recommendation would be the semester would be fall 2018?
Correct. It would go into place for the beginning of that semester, yes.
Okay. Okay. Board member, questions or comments? Dr. Brennan.
Dr. Brennan, you may have mentioned this, but in the draft that we had, there was talk about the waive fee being 20%. Were you saying that that's going to be looked at and adjusted in some other way?
When we had some conversations about it, we've been having conversations about implementation, and as we talked about that, the concern was that could be very different for different kinds of situations, and our worry that if we applied that, some situations we don't necessarily, there may not be a budget to cover it if everybody paid 20%. There are also situations where, in our experience and talking more with the schools, that a lot of times what families needed most was an ability to pay a little over time. So sometimes that timeliness piece was as important to a family as the amount part. So we wanted to remove that, and we worried that folks might just focus on that 20%, and we really need to look at it more by each of the types of activities that it applied to and use a little bit more discretion with that.
So you think that number may vary depending, the waiver may be more than 20% discount depending upon, or?
Yeah, it was actually worded as only needing to pay 20% of the amount. So in essence, it was worded as more of like an 80% discount. And so we thought we really probably ought to give a little bit more attention to that than to put that in writing at this point.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you.
My concern is when we adopt this and it's rolled out across the division, are we going to actually follow this policy? Number two, Mr. Beckles, are we going to enforce the policy as it relates to collection of necessary fees that are due?
Well, my first response to your first question is, my recommendation would be to not approve the policy if we are not going to follow it. And the second one is, if you approve the policy, we will collect the money in accordance with the policy.
So a follow-up on that, how would that be, is that going to be handled from your office, or is it handled within, say, individual schools?
It'll be handled from the individual schools, but we will provide guidance. One of the things is normally a problem, every school wants to do it differently. Well, that's why we have a policy.
Right.
So we would provide guidance that here's the policy, here's how you implement and how you follow through on the implementation and make sure that the fees are collected. Now, I would say we will work to the nth degree on making payment arrangements. And my issue has really, well, our issue has really never been those people that wants to make the arrangement. It has always been those that don't want to make any arrangement. And everybody can pay something, even if it's $1. But we can make arrangements to do that. But my answer to your question is, if the policy is approved, we will follow it.
Okay. Ms. Carter?
And my question was to how willing everyone was to make the not to make the arrangement, but to work with families that are willing to pay, that may have hardship, but they really are trying to pay the fine. So as long as we're doing that, that's great.
That should not be a problem.
Okay. The other thing is, it needs to be consistent.
Yes.
Throughout the schools. Then, you know, that's the only way it's going to really work is consistency. The other one is, are we going to also do anything else other than just mail? It says here that we're going to mail it to each family. Can we text it or post it somewhere where they can get to it? Or on page 50, collection of efforts. School will provide an itemized list of charges from the prior year by mail to each family.
My
Is that the only thing that's going to be
recommendation that'll be use all available means of communication. Whether it's texting, emails, mail, because you're going to find people respond to different types of, everybody don't respond to the mail. Yes. Some do for texting, some do for emails. So in this particular, whichever one works best for that particular grouping, fine. The key thing is getting the communication out in as many means as possible. So there's no excuse you didn't get your mail, but you got the text. You didn't get the text or the mail, but you got an email. So my recommendation, use all available means to communicate.
And if I may too, the idea of putting this is related to prior obligations. The idea of putting that out a little bit gives opportunity for multiple communication methods, so you're not kind of at the last moment.
So you're saying that this won't go into effect until, excuse me,
Until we decide.
to fall?
Well, the proposal would be the fall of 2018.
Yeah, so for clarity,
beginning of the fall of 2018.
So let me give an example that if you were going and you had a fee that you were going to pay that is related to something that you're doing in the 17-18 school year, everything that's written in here of needing to pay that before you participate in that would go into effect. The part that is about, and what would go into effect is, let's say you did a payment schedule and you paid for the first month, but now you started missing the next payment. The consequences of non-payment, well, you can't continue to participate until you've caught up. That will all go into effect immediately. The part about prior obligations, some of our students have had like a lost library book fee that was from 5 years ago. So the idea is that none of that prior obligation would come into play until a point at which the board says that prior obligation part would do.
Okay, so if a student has fallen, or the parent has fallen behind, will we also provide them with resources just in case? If they need some additional, you're saying, if I heard you correctly, that they will have to cease whatever activity they are until they catch up. Is that what I'm hearing?
If it's something that's this year,
yes,
and that they need to do that this year, I mean, we discussed, back to Mr. Beckles, if you say, you can pay $2 for this every week or month or whatever that might be, then it's somebody needing to keep on that schedule to continue on and following up with them if they've missed that.
Right, so if a student can't do that, or the parent, they really want to do it, the parent is not following through, or someone isn't, if there are resources will that student be aware of the resources that may be able to help them? Because I know someone said that there are sometimes resources for those students for certain things. I don't know everything.
I would
for
say if
certain
they
things.
came back and, let's just say they agreed to pay $2. Something happened, now we can't pay the $2. They come back and say, because of, we had a fire or whatever case is, I can't do these. Then we would work with them to see what we can do. But if they don't come back, just stop payment, and don't say any reason why they stop payment, we're going to continue to pursue the payment. But if they come back to us and say, things change, whatever the case is, we'll do our best to work with them to figure out how do we go from this point forward. I think the key piece we will be looking for is the responsibility. You know you have an obligation, you made an agreement, something happens now that you can't continue that, come back and say that. You don't come back and say that, to me it's a different story. But if you come back, then we could try to find out how can we now fix this problem.
Ms. Morrison?
This is addressing the $100,000 deficit that we have in payments that have not been made to the school system.
Correct.
That
To
parents and
Section 9.
students owe. I mean, that's a significant amount of money. Okay.
Dr. Coleman?
Yeah, my last question on this would be, I see this is for action. I'm wondering across the table, does everybody feel as though that we have honestly looked to see if these fees, fines, and charges are fair, adequate, all-inclusive? Of course, we can always come back to it. If not, we need to address that with everybody's input. But once we adopt this, we need to hold those persons accountable, in admin and those affected, in order for us to be effective and efficient as a school division.
So if we're willing to move on this policy, it looks to me like we need to make two changes, in particular on the last page, well, page 50. The school will provide an itemized list of charges from the prior years by, instead of mail to each family, we say multiple means. And then the last sentence in that paragraph would be the consequences of prior debt will not be put into place until the beginning of the fall 2018 semester. And then would delete the identified by the school board. So, Dr. Senna?
Just one question. What recourse do we have to collect fees from students who are no longer enrolled? Let's say they graduated.
At this point, not much. I mean, we haven't actually gone down the road of taking people to court. So at this point, if you graduate, that's lost money.
So would we want to maybe put an asterisk on what you said about the prior debts, that they wouldn't be due for till 2018-19 unless you are a graduating senior or something, and then they need to be settled by the end
Those are the consequences.
of the 17-18?
Not well.
Because they won't be here for 2018-19.
This section will really only apply to current students. If you're no longer here, I mean, there's not much we could do with you. But let's say you're in 9th grade now, you currently have a debt. You're in 10th grade next year. We're saying now that debt that you have for the 9th grade, you have a year to fix that.
But if I'm a starting senior right now and I have that kind of debt, and the policy says I'm not going to be accountable for it until the following fall, they will be gone before then. So I think there may need to be an exception made for those students
That theirs is no longer a year?
by the end of the school year for them.
So the prevailing practice right now in our high schools is, and the messaging, frankly, that even happens before high school is you'll have to make sure this is paid, any obligations are paid before you graduate. And if you haven't paid by graduation, then you're not allowed to walk at graduation. There are a number of students that settle all that right at the last minute in a flurry, and it gets tricky. And what we're trying to do is avoid that piece. The tricky piece is sort of the so what, and that so what for seniors has been a pretty big leverage point at the end of the year, so that would still be there.
Okay.
If you move this earlier, the tricky piece is you still have to give those students some notice. So let's say, so at the earliest for those students, it would be the spring semester. That'd be the only thing I could think of for those kids. And then that's going to have impact, though, mostly on the things that already are leverage in the current practice.
I agree.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think, it's really a matter of implementing the policy and, making them, saying, hey, we need, start collection or start a payment plan and not wait till 2018. The issue is the consequences don't take place until fall 2018. So, okay, so this is for action. It's the board's pleasure.
I move
Ms. Morrison?
approval with those two
With those
options.
two changes?
Second.
Okay.
I am comfortable with the research into the dues and the things, and I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. So, Dr. McLean, you got those changes?
They are noted,
Okay.
yes.
Okay, very good. Dr. Coleman?
It's a procedural question. With this, are we able to say in 6 months or a year to force ourselves to come back to this and make sure that we're satisfied with how this is going?
I mean, it would depend. I'm not sure how visible that would be is when you start implementing, the additional collection. I mean, certainly at the end of the year.
I mean, we can give you an update as to whether or not, for example, 100,000 has gone down or...
I would be satisfied with some type of continual update that we can be aware of, however it's easiest to do that.
Okay. So I think there's been a motion to approve with the changes. Ms. Carter seconded. Is there additional discussion? If not, is there I guess all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay, thank you. Dr. McLean, looks like you're on again. Grading and report cards. And this is for action.
So at our last board meeting, we also talked about grading and report cards, and we shared with you for information at that meeting a number of different proposals that had been put forth by some task forces that we had working on this. Through the discussion with the board, a lot of those were decided to investigate further and defer. One of the ones that was noted by the board that I understood to go forward with was something that impacts a current regulation we have. So if you look at the grading scale regulation R6-58.3, it was where we would modify the scale for K2, the top of that scale, to match what's in place for 3rd to 12th. So the only change that's noted in here basically is to move, instead of being 94 to 100, to be 90 to 100, and that would match the way it is for 3rd to 12th grade. So this is a result of that conversation last meeting and is brought for you for action this evening.
Okay. Board member, questions or comments? No? Okay. This is for action tonight. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Moved and second to approve revised grading policy. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you. We are in new business. The Lynchburg Beacon of Hope agreement. This is Dr. McLean.
One more.
Okay.
All right. We are incredibly appreciative of all that the Beacon of Hope does, and Laura Hamilton and her leadership with that. the partnership that we have to provide opportunities for our students while they're in school, in Lynchburg City Schools and well beyond. We have been working with the Beacon of Hope to have an updated agreement, sort of some main features of this agreement. It's looking to try to streamline and make more efficient the process where there would need to be, in cases, consent by a student to give information to a member of the Beacon of Hope. This makes Beacon of Hope, what the terming is school officials, so that basically they can operate as officials of Lynchburg City Schools in certain capacities, and this outlines what those are, and that helps streamline the process. We've worked a lot with Nora Dunn, and again also with Beacon of Hope, and talked with our high school principals on this. So this is brought for you this evening for information, and then request for action at our next meeting.
Okay. Board member questions or comments? Dr. Brown?
Mr. Chairman, I just comment that my wife is on the board of the Beacon of Hope, and I've asked Nora Dunn, the legal counsel, whether there's any conflict of interest, and she has pointed out that since she is not in a financial relationship with Beacon of Hope, she's volunteering on the board, that I can participate in the conversation and also vote. And just to comment and to support what Dr. McClain has said, I think we all know that the Beacon of Hope is a phenomenal partnership with Lynchburg City Schools, and I hope that this will move through the board and come to a vote next meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Coleman?
And I'll echo that. The Beacon of Hope Education Foundation, those and others, why those are the tools to solving many of our problems.
Yeah, I've been to the Beacon of Hope and the college day they had at the elementary schools, and you know, it was a little like, okay, yeah, you want to put the college bug in their head. And then you start talking to the kids, and they're like, oh, I want to be this when I grow up, and you're like, no. It's like, it's a good idea, and the Beacon of Hope is you know, in their college day, and you know that it's good to get that in the kids' heads early, and it's I think it speaks well of the city of Lynchburg and the participation from the nonprofits and supporting public education. So, okay, well, that will come to us again next meeting for action. Now we're on item I2, which is capital improvement plan for EC Glass High School. Mr. Copeland.
Good evening, everyone. Tonight I bring to you a proposal for replacement of the EC Glass track. It's that time in the cycle to replace that track. Those of you that have been on the board, you may recall that we did a couple of middle school tracks in the past year. We're not particularly happy with what we got out of those middle school tracks. So that's why this one's kind of coming late in the cycle. So we kind of stopped on where we were and started looking at other surfaces and other companies, worked with the city purchasing department to determine how we could access those services and use cooperative purchasing agreements to get these two quotes. You'll see the quotes for $153,000 and that there's only $90,000 roughly budgeted. So we're switching surfaces, going with a better, hopefully, product that will hold up for a long time. It's going to cost us a little bit extra money to do that. And so we have a capital improvement plan reserve fund that we maintain. The way we build up that reserve fund is when we have a project that comes in under budget, which most of our projects do come in under budget, and we shift that money to the reserves. In the past, we have used that CIP reserve to do things like the 4-classroom addition at Bedford Hills 3 years ago, and I ask that you approve tapping that reserve for $62,366 to make up the total bid price for this. Due to the time that we're at in July 11th of the summer, normally I would bring this to you as information and then as action. I would like the board's consideration of approving this tonight so that we can move forward with getting this track replaced.
Okay, thanks. Board member questions or comments?
I have a question. It may not be a good question, but I'm interested. Is the track going to be comparable to the track at Heritage?
It is actually the same material.
Okay, good.
I just have a question. Do you know
Mr.
about how
Powell.
long they might extend the life or propose, or do we just know it's a better product and it's going to, or is there an assumption on how much? I was just curious as to how much more life we'll get out the newer track.
I don't know that we'll get any more life out of it, but we're hoping that we won't have surface failures as frequently.
Okay.
Okay, so this is for action tonight. Is there a motion to approve?
I move that we approve.
You can let him second.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the capital improvement plan for EC Glass. Is there additional discussion?
My other one unread in this would be the 62,000 that you spoke of. Just refresh me on what that redirection of money.
So we get an allocation of money for our capital improvement projects from the city. And as we do projects, like we'll do last summer when we did the Heritage Elementary School electrical system upgrade, or when we did Darrington Elementary School lighting and ceiling replacements, we had money left over from those projects. So when we have money left over from a project, then we put it in the reserve. And then when we have projects that might go over budget, then we just use the reserve money. So this one comes to you really as a two-part approval. You're approving the bid, and then you're approving the use of the reserve to make up the balance of the contract.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded. Is there any other additional discussion? Okay, ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No.
Thank you.
Good to go. Next is item I3, Freedom of Information Act Officer, Dr. Massey.
Yes, sir.
Take it away.
I'm about ready to turn it over to Jay McConnell. If you'll indulge me, I'm going to read this because some folks in the audience may not realize why we have to do this, so if you'll indulge me. In accordance with the Code of Virginia, Section 2.2-3704, all local public bodies that are subject to the provisions of the Freedom of Information Act shall designate one or more officers whose responsibility is to serve as a point of contact for individuals and organizations requesting public records and to coordinate the public body's compliance with the provision of this chapter. The name and contact information of the FOIA officer shall be made available and posted so that individuals and organizations are able to direct requests for public records to that officer. The FOIA officer shall possess specific knowledge of the provisions of this chapter and be trained at least annually by legal counsel for the public body or the Virginia Freedom of Information Advisory Council. I recommend that the school board designate Mrs. Wendy L. Sullivan as the Freedom of Information Act officer for LCS school.
Okay, are there board member questions or comments? I just hope it's not going to detract from her board clerk duties. Well, sometimes it's right in line with her board clerk duties. Okay, so is there a motion to approve Ms. Sullivan as the Freedom of Information Act officer for the school division?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any additional discussion? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Thank you. That brings us to item I4, the Central Virginia Governor School for Science and Technology 2016-17 budget. And I guess I'm going to make a comment. These next three items are in fact, next four items are in fact for the 2016-17 individual budgets. Normally they would come to us a little earlier in the year for approval, but since they were folded into the overall operating budget, they were already approved. We're just sort of, cleaning things up. So, just Mr. Beckles, you get all of these.
Just one note on the Central Virginia budget. You notice it says 2015, 2016 twice. Well, the one on the right should be 2016, 17. if you remember, we were trying for the last couple of years to get these bodies to bring their budgets to us earlier in the process. So far, we have not been successful in that endeavor. Again, we will try again this year for them to give it to us earlier so we can get it out of the way early on in the process. But I assure you, we have been monitoring, as fiscal agents for the 4 of these bodies, we have been monitoring their finances on a monthly basis. So this was just bringing the budgets for the board to approve. Their individual boards have already approved it, which part of the documentation is the board's approval. So you're approving it just because we are the fiscal agent overseeing their budgets.
Okay. And that is for action at our next meeting?
Correct. Or for actions at our next
if everyone's okay, we put this on the consent agenda? Okay. Next is item I-5, the Accelerate Governor STEM Academy, same thing, 2016-17 budget. That is for information tonight and with action at our next meeting. Mr. Buckles?
STEM's budget is the same as Governor School. It is the 17 budget, and no significant issues in their budget. All have been approved and been monitored throughout the year.
Okay. All right.
That is for action at the next board meeting.
Put this on the consent agenda also? Okay. All right. Now we move to the Laurel Regional School 2016-17 budget. Same thing, it's for information tonight with action at our next meeting. Mr. Beckles?
The same, no significant issues there. Again, we've been monitoring their budget throughout the year, and we have been meeting with them on a monthly basis. This is for action at our next board meeting.
Okay. Put this on the consent agenda? Okay. All right. And I think the last is the Laurel Regional, no, it's not the last one.
STEM Academy.
Where am I at?
Steps with
I got lost. Accelerate STEM Academy. Is that right?
Steps with links.
Steps with links, sorry. I-7, yeah, I'm way behind. The Pauline F. Maloney Step with Links program, 2016-17 budget.
Likewise, Steps with Link budget is a small budget, $41,400. We have been again monitoring their budget throughout the year. No significant, and has been approved by their board. We have been monitoring throughout the year. This is also for action at the next school board meeting.
Okay. Put this on the consent agenda. Okay. Right. All right. So now we're at superintendent's comments. Dr. Massey.
Jay, may I go ahead with this? You know, I want to say how honored I am to serve you, and I'm just very enthusiastic about the position you put me in, and I'm so impressed with this staff here and the principals that I've met, and I just feel really enthusiastic and positive that we're going to make lots of progress this year. I would be remiss if I didn't say that a lot of progress has been made in Lynchburg City Schools since I was here 6 years ago, and we need to acknowledge that and give credit to Dr. Brabrand and to this fine staff and to the principals and teachers and students and staff members in our schools. I can see a marked improvement, and it was really gratifying to me to see that. And but I do thank you for the opportunity to be here. I thank my wife for letting me come after some arm twisting. Al Coleman did ask me how old I was today. I'm not sure why he did, but I hope the board doesn't hold my youth and inexperience against me. I don't think that was where Al was coming from. I would like to mention a couple of things that I know some of you are, well, probably all of you, as we all are concerned about filling a very important position, not only the superintendent that's the chore of the board, has to deal with, but the EC Glass principalship, which is such an important position in the school division. I talked to Ms. Marie G. today, and I want to just briefly go over this, and Marie can speak to it better than I, really. But we have advertised in the Virginian Pilot in Virginia Beach, the Daily Progress in Charlottesville, the News and Advance in Lynchburg, the Washington Post, Education Network, and Top Job, the Roanoke Times, the Virginia Association for Secondary School Principals, the Teacher website, and so we are really putting that word out there. I'm also meeting with some college folks to get some, or to ask them to keep us in mind with excellent applicants they may have that are enrolled in doctoral or master's degree programs. And so we're working diligently to do that. We're not going to just settle. I want you to know that we're going to find some outstanding people, and I think 9 people have applied. I haven't had a chance to look over those yet, but hopefully we'll can be getting into that process soon. So just to give you an update on that. Just a couple of announcements, and if anyone needs copies of this, I can get it to them. The new instructional staff welcome breakfast will occur Monday, July the 31st, 2017, and I'd like to invite the board, if they wish to come, at 8 a.m. In the Memorial Ballroom at the Hall Campus Center at Lynchburg College. We will welcome over 100 new instructional staff members. The welcome breakfast serves as the start of a 3-day orientation for new instructional staff. And during the course of the 3 days, new instructional staff will have a building level orientation at the schools and will participate in additional professional development specific to the staff. And also I want to point out, I've met with about half the principals, the folks that were not on vacation, that principals will assign mentors to each of the new teachers, which is very, very important. Just a brief overview of the summer school programs that we have going on. Summer programming is well underway across all grade levels, pre-K through 12. We're running the following programs through Friday, July the 21st. In the elementary schools, 140 students are attending the Summer Bridge program, 107 students in the Pedal Math Acceleration program, and the middle school level, 90 students in the Math and Science program, and about 110 students start the Reading History program at the end of this week. And the high school, 84 students are in the Credit Recovery program, including English, biology, algebra, and other subjects. The SOL Academy has had over 30 students pass SOL tests so far, and 2 term grads have reached requirement for graduation. And we have additional students in the Empowerment Academy and the Pedal courses. On high school online courses, 67 rising 9th graders and 21 10th and 12th through 12th graders, 88 total students are participating in the summer online health and PE course, and 137 students are participating, 10th and to 12th graders are participating in the annual personal finance course. And thanks to Dr. J for providing me with this information. It was news to me, and I thought the board would be impressed. All right, the summer food service program. The summer food service program is in full swing throughout Lynchburg. This is I was excited to read about this. In addition to serving the division's summer programs, the LCS school nutrition program is preparing and delivering meals to a number of community partners, such as the Boys and Girls Clubs, the Lynchburg Parks and Recreation Summer Camps, the Hill City Hoops, the YMCA Summer Camps, and the Lynchburg Public Library. And a representative from the Virginia Department of Health paid a visit to Lynchburg yesterday, and after watching meal production at EC Glass and lunch service at the library, she's recommending that Lynchburg City Schools serve as a model of best practices for the Commonwealth of Virginia. From the IT department, from Mr. Childress, He is announcing that the data analysis resource teachers are excited to announce the summer tech extravaganza. Did I say that correctly? July the 26th at Heritage High School. They'll have a day full of have a day full of 1-hour technology lessons coupled with a carnival atmosphere complete with food trucks and balloon animals, and this is for teachers. Come learn some of the best ways to integrate technology into your lessons, complete with time to work on your lessons alongside a data analysis resource teacher. It sounds like a lot of fun. I may have to go see that myself. So thank you.
Thank you. Board member comments. Ms. Carter?
That was great, wonderful to hear, Dr. Massey, that you've seen progress since the last time you were here.
Absolutely.
That is always great to know. That's all I need.
Dr. Coleman?
Very briefly, Dr. Massey, we're all glad you're here.
Thank you, sir.
And things have gotten better. Part of that obviously should be attributed to you as well. I looked at a tape in March of 2012. You clearly are a person that rolls up your sleeves and gets to work. You certainly have our support.
Thank you.
I want to also mention today I went over to R.S. Payne, and I understand that Dr. Nillis and Dr. Massey and others have already shared, Mr. Rudder, etc., with the program that the Y is doing over there with 50 of our Lynchburg students, building potential summer learning loss prevention program. And I asked for the specific data, and those kids are getting better that have been participating in that program since 2014. It's another kind of hidden secret weapon for us to do what we need to do. And they want all of us who can to go over there and see that program, and so I'll just pass those around for those who may be interested. But those are the kinds of programs and the initiatives that will continue to help us to get better, or to become the championship division, as Susan Morrison would say.
Okay, other board member comments? Well, thank you all for, I think, selecting me as chairman again. We have a very busy year ahead of us, and I know everyone's going to engage, and we have been engaging. So we will come up with a very good selection. I'd like to welcome Dr. Brennan. Just remember, you volunteered. You get paid, and this is the bonus. This is not usually what we get. But, yeah, welcome, and I'm looking forward to working with you. And Dr. Massey, welcome.
Thank you.
I'm glad it worked out. I've heard from lots of other people they're glad it worked out. So
Thank you, sir.
we just need to keep moving forward, and we will. Couple informational items. We have a school board work session following this meeting. And our next formal school board meeting is Tuesday, August 1st at 5:30 here in the boardroom in the admin building. And with that, we're adjourned. Thank you.